Thank you for joining us today for 10 Minutes with the Artist, an episodic series that explores the art practice and the personal vision that guides artists. On today's episode, we're very proud to have Ulysses Sibo, who is completing his master's in architecture at North Dakota State University. We invited him here today to speak about his research as well as the creation of artifacts in preparation of his defense. Through the Other is a multimedia experience that examines the edge between peoples, stories, and distinctions in American culture. The artifact curates a medley of fragmented images and experiences that speak to insecurity, safety, home, and hope. The work is at once overwhelming and then comforting as a viewer recognizes that the other may be unavoidably familiar. My name is Anthony Ferris, and this is 10 Minutes with the Artist. Ulysses, thank you so very much for joining us today on 10 Minutes with the Artist. I've noticed that one of the new gathering spaces for people who come from different ethnic and cultural and economic backgrounds is places like Walmart. I was wondering, where did these groups used to meet, or did they meet?
Yes, they definitely did meet, but they met in public forums. If we go back all the way back to the Greeks, it was usually like the town hall was the center of the city, and so that's where people met to discuss things as casual as the local gossip or things that are a little more important, like the way that their government should be run.
And why did that change?
That changed for a variety of reasons. The most modern being technological advancements. So things like the media, social media, or phones. There are just different ways to communicate with a wide variety of people instantly, as opposed to back in the day you had to be right in front of someone and have that conversation to establish a dialogue. But now you can text someone from thousands of miles away, or even like out of space. They can send messages back down to Earth, and so that's one of the reasons that it's changed.
In your artifact, there are these disparate scenes, and they're being shown at the same time. And I was wondering why it's so difficult to reconcile what's going on in my peripheral.
Yes, that was an intentional move on my part, just to first kind of disorient you and get you as a member of the audience to participate with the artifact itself, to try to grasp some sort of meaning out of what may at first seem like chaos, and so that's why that intention was there. But it's ultimately supposed to lead you to some sort of meaning and some sort of dialogue, which starts with you inserting some sort of meaning into this thing, which at first seems a little chaotic.
Have you noticed that some of the scenes people ignore and some of them they pay attention to?
Yes, I have. And some of the scenes include dialogue of their own, and then others are like the one where it's just the ocean and these violent waves crashing on the shore. So that's a scene that's a little less actively like pursuing a conversation with you, as opposed to the scene where the younger gentleman talks about coffee and what kind of coffee he likes and peers and whatnot. But that's just to establish a contrast between those two. I think there's a dialogue that can be established with both of those scenes, just in a different way, and just really trying to evoke that interaction, but also contrasting the way those interactions occur.
Well, speaking of interactions, as the world's become more global, people have simultaneously become more sort of culturally isolated in politics. And I was wondering if you can discuss this dichotomy of connection and sort of like a yearning for disconnection and isolation.
Yeah, well, it seems that with us having access to these new innovations, like cell phones, going back to that example, it's so much easier for us to stay connected. But the sincerity of those connections, the genuineness of our interactions seem to have receded unfortunately. So it's much easier for us to have a conversation, but because it's so easy for us to establish a conversation, it becomes harder for us to have a genuine interaction while conversating, it's an interesting paradox, but I don't think it's something that can't be reversed in a way. I think it's very possible to establish a genuine interaction across social media or through cell phones or whatever these new platforms are. I think it's very much so possible. It just isn't that's not how it's occurring oftentimes today, which is unfortunate. But I use my artifact to showcase that these innovations aren't necessarily the problem, but rather their application as a divisive force. And so I'm using the same resources that we all have access to today, but in a way that stimulates or evokes a genuine interaction between yourself and the artifact, or yourself and someone else, the other in this case.
There's this thing where people think that we should all be treated equally,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that everybody's story is important. But then we have our own story and our own values and our own experience. So I don't know if, I think that people feel like there's a threat to their culture and their story
Mm-hmm.
when they have to interact with another. Is that something that can be reconciled?
I'm not.
Can you solve that problem right now for me?
No, I don't think it's that easy. But I don't think it's hopeless either. I think there is a natural curiosity that we as humans have towards anything that is different and outside of ourselves, whether that be a new location, destination that we want to go to, like for a vacation or something like that. We want to explore something new because we don't know much about it, and so we'd like to fill in that lack of knowledge, or that be someone else. And so I think it's important to explore or to go on these journeys with an open mind and brace yourself, or not brace yourself, but be open to learning something new. Because I think it's very easy, especially today, to go in with these assumptions about this place or this person and just create this wall. This non-literal wall there between yourself and this other person, yourself in this other place. And then regardless of what happens, you're just going to be stuck in your own ways. It's easy to get stuck in that realm. But it's important that we don't do that we go in with an open mind and interact with this new location or this new person and allow ourselves to learn something about themselves as well as our own being.
Yeah. What was the name of your site?
It's Battery Park.
Okay.
Yeah, Lower Manhattan.
Yeah, one of the most beautiful things, and I think this is incredibly poetic, is that the land for that was actually sort of dredged up from the sea.
Mm-hmm.
So the first time that these people are touching the land of America,
Mm-hmm.
they're actually touching the land from the sea, that's been dredged up and created specifically for them. So it is like completely a new world, a new land.
Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering if you could just talk a little bit about using something so poetic as that into your architecture and your space.
Yeah, that's actually the primary reason why I chose that site, besides it also being a part of New York, Lower Manhattan, the melting culture of the area. But yes, that's something that I want to take advantage of and kind of like unearth the rich history of the place. As you mentioned before, this is where people first came to America. This is a new coast, but an old coast at the same time. So when we're looking at different cultures, especially in regards to America, this nation of various cultures, I think it's very important to showcase that. I lost my train of thought there, but to showcase that this is something that is both new and old, and people have coexisted and grown as a result of their diversity, as opposed to not. But that's that is my intention.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I was at the very end of our conversation, we'd like to ask a few questions about your creative practice.
Mm-hmm.
So what time of day do you feel like you're most creative?
I like to change it up. Depends on where I am and who's around me. So at the beginning of my process, I like to be around other creative people. Usually my classmates are studio set up for to kind of be like that, which is really nice. But as I transition and sharpen my idea a little more, I like to be, a little more secluded. And so then I go from working during the day to working either super late at night or early in the morning, just so I can get a little more peace and quiet. And then also I'm a very social person, so I get distracted when other people are around, and so yeah.
Do you listen to music or anything like that when you are creating?
Yes, I do. I like to diversify a little bit. Usually start out with something familiar though. I'm a big hip hop fan, so 90s hip hop. Pac, Biggie, Tribe Called Quest, that kind of thing. But then again, as my process continues, I kind of, run through all of that and try to diversify. Listen to everything from EDM to soul and jazz and R&B.
Okay. Is there anything that you're reading right now?
Yes, The Human Condition by Hannah Arendt. And it's just really opening my eyes to the same world that we live in today, but it paints a different picture of it. So things that are very familiar are rediscovered in a new way, and she's just amazing at doing that.
And then I guess my last question would be, what's next?
Well, hopefully wrap up the thesis here. We've got our presentations coming up here in a couple weeks, and then after that I'm going to be moving back to the Twin Cities. And it's been a while since I've seen my family, so it'd be really, really nice to get back in touch and whatnot.
Well, best of luck to you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank our guest, Ulysses, and I'd also like to thank you for your time and your interest in the professional practice and the creative explorations happening here at North Dakota State University. So thank you, and for everyone here at the Memorial Union Gallery, keep creative.